right. Let me tweak this a little bit. There we go. That audio is a little bit better, I think. Welcome. How is everyone's evening, morning, afternoon? Hopefully you all had a wonderful weekend and either are starting your day or are starting your day and have a wonderful start of your week. I guess Sunday really is the start of the week. I consider Monday kind of the start. But let's go ahead and get started. Sorry I'm a little late. I know I start 15 minutes late and then apologize for being slightly late to that. All right, so as soon as this is over, links will be in the description. Also, just as a friendly reminder, feel free to chat and or ask me any questions you like during this, and I will try to answer them when it's most appropriate. All right, so we are going to start off tonight. Oh, actually, one other thing. Tonight, after this is done, and however long it takes to upload, I will be uploading the audio to this, and the link to the podcast will be in the description. So if you'd like to hear this as a podcast on your Monday morning commute, there will also be that option. Although I'd love for you to come and see the video. All right, let's go ahead and switch over to here. All right, so as usual, we're going to start off here with a little bit of security. I found this one quite interesting because this kind of gets into interesting territory. And Google gets heat from this either way, and I like to give Google heat for some of their decisions, but really I don't think that this is I don't know that Google necessarily made a mistake here, or it's difficult. It's a touchy situation because what happened was that Google actually basically blocked some counter terrorists of U.S. allies. So they kind of patched some stuff that some very high-level hackers from some of the U.S. allies and kind of ruined their operation that was taking months to do. So the good news is everyone's more secure because of what Google did. The hard part is Google doesn't necessarily know who's doing what until they do it. And they didn't release anything about who the counter-terrorist team was hacking. So I don't know. I kind of think that they did a good job. But anyways, there will be a link to this if you want to read this article yourself. But basically, yeah, it was about Project Zero. Basically, they have a really good cyber team, one of the best. And occasionally they stop government agencies. That's how good they are. Anyways, that being said, they did basically help with 11 vulnerabilities that compromised everything from iOS, Android, and Windows. So anyways, interesting thing there. Yeah. All right. I found this to be a very interesting article, and I actually have a follow-up to this because if you notice Node here, also these graphs don't work properly because this should have been 5 times. This is where this little thing here. Do not use the Node container image. You probably shouldn't use Node. It's not very secure, and there's a bunch of vulnerabilities in it. But that being said, the whole point of this article was, even if you're just using the vanilla image, even in just Ubuntu, it doesn't necessarily protect you. And Ubuntu has done really well. So if you notice in 2019, they had 0, where in 2018, they had 30. But some of these have actually had more vulnerabilities. So the whole thing here is just pulling latest doesn't always mean you get fewer vulnerabilities. As you can see with a lot of these, they raise. Node was the worst by far. But that being said, you can't just rely on your containers to bring you security. This is where I go into layers of security always. But yeah, so anyways, you just need to be very careful with your containers. And this is really a good read because it really starts to talk about security with containers and why it's important to not just rely on the containers themselves. And that's it for security. So I know that's like the least we've done on security, but I really wanted to talk about this. Richard Stallman. If you don't know who Richard Stallman is, he is one of the biggest founders of open source. He did a lot and worked at MIT for a very long time. And Richard Stallman made some remarks, and then he left the FSF board, basically to go think about his life choices. That being said, he has actually come back to the FSF board of directors, and this has kind of caused some turmoil in the open source community, even to Red Hat pooling funding from the Free Software Foundation. So anyways, if you don't know what Richard Stallman did, he basically defended some horrible people, and then after he defended those horrible people, people kind of dug into some of the things he said earlier on in his career, like in the early 2000s, and he said some stuff that is not socially acceptable about children. And so that's why he was kind of asked to leave. But anyways, he's back. And I really would love to know your guys' thoughts on this, because I don't know. Partially, I say that you should be able to, I don't know. Sometimes I think we punish you too much for what you've said in your past. Now, that being said, I don't know that Richard Stallman ever said sorry. So, yeah, as society changes, what's socially acceptable changes. And so sometimes I think that if it was socially acceptable 30 years ago, then you really need to look at a person's now and not their past. But at the same time, you need to see that they've changed from their past. So this is where I just don't know that Richard Stallman has really made any statement that says he has changed from his past, and this is probably why it's a big deal. Anyways, this happened this last week, and yeah, it was pretty big news for the open source community. So I guess I don't really have much more to talk about it than that, other than if you didn't know who Richard Stallman was, which you should if you are into open source. All right, so let's go into the cloud, since we don't really want to talk about that. That's a little too political for me. Amazon and Red Hat announced their general availability of the Red Hat OpenShift service on AWS. So if you don't know what this is, it's basically a managed OpenShift cluster on Amazon. So think EKS, but OpenShift. So if you're trying to run OpenShift multi-cloud here, this is an easy way of running OpenShift on AWS. And it's now generally available. So it's been out in preview for a little while now. I actually almost, at one point, I applied for a job on the team that was doing the performance for this. I didn't take that job. Actually, this is a good segue. Right here, all opinions and views on this channel and here are my own, not sponsored by anybody, and I don't represent, more importantly, I don't represent past, present, or future employers. So just let that be out there, that everything I say here is my own, and I'm not representing anybody else out there. All right, that being said, this is out there, and it's in general availability. The other interesting thing here is Amazon's EFS CSI driver now supports dynamic provisioning. If this is just out there in case you didn't have enough abbreviations, EFS is the Elastic File System, and CSI stands for Container Storage Interface. Basically, CSI is how storage is presented to Kubernetes. It's how they abstracted it out. And what's cool about this is dynamic provisioning in Kubernetes is where basically you don't have to define a storage class. So when you generally use storage, you define a storage class and you use that storage class, but it means that all of your resources have to use that storage class and to name it. Dynamic provisioning allows you to use a default and dynamically provision storage. So that means it's going to create, when you request a persistent volume claim, it's going to create storage for you. And now in Amazon, it's going to charge you for whatever storage that you provision using this, but it's going to provision it dynamically so that you don't have to have somebody there provisioning storage for your Kubernetes cluster. So this is actually a huge thing for the Elastic file system because dynamic storage provision is huge. So anyways, if you run Kubernetes on Amazon, EFS now supports it. I think that's really cool. And this is probably a big deal for anybody that's running on AWS and runs Kubernetes, I guess, of course. Moving on to Google, GCP announced the Network Connectivity Center. I read through this and I'm not even quite sure that I still fully understand what it is, but basically it offers the ability to, it's part of their multi-cloud strategy or hybrid cloud strategy for on-premise. So basically it's a network connectivity center to span both your GCP and on-premise and allow you to manage and see it from one spot. So yeah, that's basically what it is. It's something that I need to dig further into. I haven't done a whole lot, but that's basically what it does. Is it allows you to see your cloud from your network connectivity from one spot in their hybrid cloud. Google is really pushing their hybrid cloud, and so it doesn't surprise me that this is one of their things. I know Azure also really pushed hybrid cloud for a while. I haven't actually seen as much from Azure recently. So when they were first starting to fight against AWS and they were still much smaller, they did a lot of things with like, hey, you can also run in your own data center on bare metal and have this hybrid. Now that they've become a bigger player themselves, I think that strategy has kind of waned some because I haven't seen as much, but I need to investigate that more because maybe they're just not promoting it as much and they're still working really hard on it. Whereas GCP is really promoting their hybrid. All right, so Cisco and HashiCorp joined forces to deliver infrastructure as code on. I don't know why they joined Cisco. I haven't actually seen a whole lot out of Cisco, but basically this is a partnership with HashiCorp. Always has done this with Terraform, but basically they're bringing more automation. So if you guys use Cisco, Cisco's cloud, it has more automation with Terraform. So anyways, I don't know that many people here use Cisco Cloud, but I thought it was worth bringing up. All right. So Gitlab has an open DevOps platform, and I found this for any of you guys that, I know we've been doing a lot of DevOps, and I have another DevOps video that I'm in the process of making, or more specifically a GitOps video. And so I wanted to share this with you guys because GitLab is actually one of the major, there's Weave and GitLab are some of the bigger GitOps. I don't know. What's the word for the people that go out ahead? They're that for GitOps. So anyways, they have an open DevOps platform. And so yeah, it's really cool. Anyways, you guys should check it out if you use GitLab. I don't use GitLab, so I try to cover GitLab for the few that do, because I think they're a cool company and nothing against them. So I try to cover them whenever I see something interesting that they post on their blog. So anyways, this should have been in the security. I meant for it to be in the security. Basically, Backblaze, I love their hard drive statistics, and when they come out with their 2001 hard drive statistics, I will cover that as usual. But this was a blog post on third-party tracking. Basically, third-party tracking got behind their login page, and they just kind of released a update on what happened, why it got there, how it got there, and what they did to rectify the problem and make sure it didn't happen again. I think that this was a really good way of a company handling this thing. They didn't brush it under the rug and try to pretend it didn't happen. They actually faced the issue, fixed the issue, and then wrote about it. And actually, they wrote about it and then they updated it. So before they had a fix, they stated what happened and what actions they were working on. And then they wrote an update about what they've done so far and a few more actions they're going to take. So anyways, I think that this is a really good way to build trust, because guess what? These things happen. If you never admit to having an issue like this, I'm going to call your bluff. You probably have. And so being very upfront with them, I think, is the perfect way of doing it and build trust. Anyways, do like Backblaze. It's hard to say sometimes. All right, let's get on to our projects. Again, remember, if you have a project, if you know of a project that you think would be helpful to, the open source Kubernetes cloud area, feel free to let me know. Post it in the comments, or get on Discord and message me there, or tweet at me. GNOME 40. Now, I know this is not really cloud native or anything that we normally do, but I'm actually pretty excited about GNOME 40. This being said, I hate that it looks so much like iOS. Now, I use i3, and I'll use Sway as soon as good Wayland support is out. But GNOME 40 is exciting. One of the reasons I don't like i3 is sometimes it doesn't handle configuration change very well. And this is where a real desktop actually does that. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to get it installed on a computer, and I'm going to demo it for you guys here soon in a little bit. But yeah, it's released, so give those guys a shout out. Done some good works. All right, so first real Kubernetes product here. This actually was surprising to me. Now, I have applied for early access. If I get early access, I will demo this for you guys. Because I'm kind of confused as to what it's for. It's I don't know how to pronounce it. I call it Civo Kubernetes, but it's created for developers by developers to offer the easiest and most cost-effective way to deploy Kubernetes. I don't really know what it does. The most cost-effective way to deploy Kubernetes. It seems like it's a Kubernetes cloud. This is what I'm understanding at this point. They have free DDoS protection and custom firewalls and bandwidth pooling. So it seems like it's a cloud provider that only provides Kubernetes. And it seems to be built on top of Rancher's technology. If you dig into it, it was using K3s, which does pose some questions to me, because if it's only using K3s, as far as I know at this point, K3s only supports a single control plane node and doesn't have high availability. So it seems to be based and built off of K3s. But this is the first new Kubernetes distribution I've seen in a long time. So I kind of thought the market was contracting. SUSE bought Rancher, and IBM bought Red Hat, and all of the major Kubernetes, VMware bought Heptio. All of the startups around Kubernetes were kind of getting bought out. So I'm interested to see this new project. I will be very interested to actually try it out, because I don't know. Basically, I would suggest going and applying. I already applied, so you won't get in line before me, so it's safe, because of course I should be the first one to get one so I can demo it for all of you guys. And that's super selfish of me, and I'm a horrible person for saying it. But I am interested in trying it out. So now, earlier on, I told you guys Node had a bunch of problems. Node had a lot of problems before this, but it's always had a lot of problems, and it's bulky and whatnot. There is a new project out there called, I don't know how to pronounce it, Deno. I'm going to say Deno. Deno is written in Rust, which makes it awesome. But on top of that, it is an alternative to Node.js. So I'm super excited about this because basically it's designed to be a runtime for JavaScript and TypeScript. And it's supposed to kind of fix the problems of Node.js. So I'm actually going to try it at some point in the future. I didn't know it existed until like 2 days ago. But yeah, I'm excited because I've always hated Node. And so this kind of has made me excited about trying to make a web project with Deno. So anyways, it's cool. Yeah. It's a secure runtime for JavaScript. That was one of the things I was wanting to bring up is it was, I guess, designed to be secure, which as you saw, the Node.js, not very secure. All right. Gloo Edge is another ingress controller. So if you guys don't know what ingress controllers is, I have a video on ingress controllers, but Gloo Edge is an ingress controller. I've never actually used it. I saw it and wanted to show you guys because one, their little logo is adorable. It makes me think of the Traffic one because Traffic also had like the guy doing the airport plane wavy stick thing. There's a name for that, I'm sure. But English is hard. But yeah, so anyways, here's another Kubernetes native. One thing that I saw that was interesting about this is it looks like it has really good integration with Istio. So if you're wanting to use it with Istio, if you use Istio as your service mesh, sorry, go back to English is hard. If you're wanting to use Istio as your service mesh, it looks like it's really well integrated with that. So it might give you a unique support there. They say that it is Kubernetes native. A lot of things say they're Kubernetes native. I think your mileage varies there. But yeah, anyways, it looks pretty cool. And then the very last one is Cubecost. Cubecost is actually something I have really enjoyed. It is an open source project. So you can go ahead and check out Cubecost. They have their open source here. They just raised a bunch of money, so good job to them. But basically what Cubecost does, if you don't know, is it tries to help you cut down on the costs in your running Kubernetes because sometimes it can get out of hand. And really, this is true about any cloud. If you're not being very specific and not leveraging tools, when you start getting large deployments, it can be hard to see if you're spending appropriately. So Cubecost goal is to do this for Kubernetes. So if you and your company are using a lot of Kubernetes, this might be something that you can look into as it tries to help you basically build your clusters out in a way that they're best utilized and you don't have spare resources. So anyhow, that's it for me today. I thank you guys for joining. Feel free to ask me questions while this is going. I have Discord open, I have the chat open, so I should see your questions and I can fit them in at appropriate times. I have a new update for the M1 Mac. If you didn't watch that video, you should go ahead and watch it there. I found something interesting with their memory, and I'm going to release a video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it because I think it will actually be a good actual video. But yes, I have an update for that memory, so if you want to know, I talked about there's a memory issue, and it's a real issue. There isn't a real solution to it. But I have done more digging. So I spent literally 6 hours this weekend, plus some more before that, digging into that memory issue. And I'm going to report on it for you guys. Other than that, let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. Let me know in Discord what you'd like to see. And tweet at me if you find something interesting. Thank you guys for joining. I hope to see you guys next week. And have a fantastic next week. It's a new month this week. I think Wednesday or Thursday. Someday this next week. New month. Have a fantastic next week and new month.